Hey guys, Zane here with another one take review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Callous Daoboys album, Celebrity Therapist. Celebrity Therapist is the latest studio album from metalcore band the Callous Daoboys. Although not necessarily the most popular metal band in the world or anything like that, the Callous Daoboys have definitely gotten a fair share of respect in the metalcore scene, and hey, maybe that's not saying much considering metalcore does go slightly under-respected even in metal circles very often. They are still one of the more respected acts from the movement and have gotten their credit over time for being one of the metalcore subgenre and metalcore scene's most consistent and generally outrageous bands, and it's not hard to see why, as their latest studio album, Celebrity Therapist, continues to prove just how unique they are. For those not in the know, the metalcore scene is kind of a difficult thing to talk about sometimes just because there are hundreds, if not literal thousands, of different acts and bands that sound the exact same as the next act or band with really no difference between them. Metalcore is definitely an interesting thing to try and get into, but certain artists can be kind of difficult to talk about without comparing them to another artist that came several decades before them, solely because of the fact that it is a subgenre slash movement slash whatever label you want to slap on it that's sort of just chained to a singular boulder very often without any actual progression in terms of sound or aesthetic. But bands like the Callous Daoboys are artists that are kind of trying to break that mold, so to speak. Much of this uniqueness is sort of maintained by their reliance on their personal sonic extremes. For example, when the Callous Daoboys do finally just sort of lean into those hardcore and metal influences that they do have, obviously being that they are a metalcore band, they totally let loose and have absolutely zero restraints put on them. I mean, cities burn to rubble, ancient structures get turned to just absolute piles of garbage when this band finally just unleashed their fury on this record. It is an excellent thing to hear at times. They are truly an insane band, and frankly, this is just the studio version of them, and I'm sure they're just as, if not significantly more crazy live. But my point is, they really have translated all of this aggression and almost psychopathy into the studio and into their performances, and is ultimately effective in that regard. However, there are times where they also embrace their more melodic side as well, and while this is typically to be expected in metalcore in general, they do prove themselves to be genuinely intelligent songwriters with good ears for interludes and bridges that are more accessible to the average listener who's not familiar with this particular niche. In fact, the compositions here in general are pretty great as they are structured together beautifully and obviously with a very purposeful manner, yet at the same time they are knowingly made rickety to sort of give you a sense of paranoia and chaos in the midst of all of this really well put together and again, well structured music. Now, not everything is perfect about Celebrity Therapist. In fact, this is unfortunately a fairly imperfect record overall, as some of the more experimental and avant-garde qualities of the album expectedly do make it a bit harder to connect with at times. While tracks like Beautiful Dude Missile and Field Sobriety Practice, the latter in particular being especially great as an example of the band's dramatics, are both great tracks isolated and on their own, they don't exactly feel like they go hand in hand on the same project, even if they are several spaces apart on the track listing. Meanwhile, some of the hyper-slick production choices that are made on cuts like The Elephant Man in the Room don't exactly suit the vicious nature of the record. Obviously, it's not meant to be the most raw sonic experience in the world or anything like that, but at the same time, it does feel like there needs to be a bit more openness and honesty in the actual production choices itself, because really just cleaning things up almost feels like it takes away from the band's actual musical talents in exchange for something that is just sonically pleasing and nothing more. Nonetheless, this does not prevent the band's instrumental abilities. Nonetheless, this doesn't actually prevent the band's proper musicianship from shining through, with vocalist Carson Pace's voice sounding absolutely demonic at times. He is truly a powerful figure in this band and on this record, while guitarist Matty Caffery's guitar work is disarmingly dissonant, and I mean that in the best way possible, and there's nothing that could possibly take that away from either one of them or the entire collective as a whole. So overall, Celebrity Therapist is a strong record overall, and one that I do recommend if you are a mathcore fan or a pre-established fan of the Callous Daoboys. However, it is a bit less structured and cohesive, with a lack of themes of consistency that it needs to truly excel. I'm going to give this record 3.5 stars out of 5. My one take on this album is that Celebrity Therapist may lack the cohesion and consistency that it needs to truly be fantastic, but the individuals behind the Callous Daoboys are simply too impassioned to pass up. So again, 3.5 stars out of 5, and with that being said, that's the end of this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one.